Okay, we are live as live can get. iHeartRadio, of course, 50 plus AM FM stations across the country and around the world, AMFM247.com. And we have got the great Frank Vernuccio from USA Gov Policy joining us today. Also, our good friend Dan Perkins from Dan Perkins Media. IQL Rassooli will be along a little bit later. And we are scheduled to have Jeff Cruer on as soon as Frank leaves us here on our program. But let's start with this whole thing with Russia and Zelensky and all these things. I heard Alex Jones and a few people today talking about the fact that Trump and Putin are going to be talking, and now Zelensky's like, I have to get an invite. And I'm like, what? Who said you have to get an invite? Vernuccio, start us off here, baby. What do you think about all this?
Well, I guess because it's Zelensky's country, he figured he should be involved somewhat in these discussions, you know? Um, but it's interesting. He has pulled off an interesting maneuver. He has spoken with European governments who themselves are saying that a deal that surrenders Ukrainian territory is going to be suspect. And in fact, there's legitimate cause for concern here. If Russia profits from its war with Ukraine in any measure, then a lot of the Europeans are saying, well, does that mean that if, for example, he goes after Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, that perhaps he can grab a small piece of them, even if he doesn't take the whole pie? And they are deeply concerned about that, legitimately so. Of course, the real politic on the ground is that the Ukrainians, are losing more territory. Their population is, I think, bled to the point where they can't go much further. They have really mobilized as much as they can. So it's a question of realpolitik versus suffering on the ground versus the larger geopolitical concerns. And as this goes on even further, I think you're going to see some pretty serious behind the discussion talks between the United States and Ukraine. I tend to be one of those who believe that we should have helped Ukraine a lot earlier and a lot more. I don't think it should have gotten to this point. And I think that at some point, the larger concerns are going to have to come into play in whatever settlement the president and Putin are talking about in Alaska this Friday.
So, Dan, what do you have for us, my friend?
Oh, I got lots for you. Lots for you. First of all, Frank, I think that it's ironic that today Tulsi Gabbard was talking about more documents being released showing the active participation of Barack Obama in the Russian situation. And lawyers are now saying, well, maybe he's not going to get all that immunity that he thought he was going to get out of the Supreme Court. However, the Ukrainian problem rests at one set of feet. Barack Obama, when he told the Ukrainians to get rid of their nuclear weapons and that we'll send them blankets and we'll protect them, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And they've been paying the price for it every day. However, I have another story, and I would say to you in all candor to both of you, I have had no contact at all with the administration or indirect representatives of the administration. I'm just going to give you my personal observation. I think that when Putin and Trump get together, if you've paid attention what has happened in advance, you will understand that Donald Trump is playing a chess game with Mr. Putin. The first move was the institution of tariffs all over the world and changing of tariffs. Number two, the tariff deal he struck with the EU for $750 billion deal of buying energy from the United States over the next 3 years. That $750 billion is going to come out of one place, Russia. because they're not going to get it. It's going to go to the United States. Now we have a situation where in Utah last week, the president issued an executive order to lift the sanctions on a coal mine in Utah that has been trying to get a federal permit for over 10 years, which has some of the most energy efficient and cleanest coal in the world. And there are millions of tons of it. They're going to open up the mine and they're going to start off by supplying the coal to the power plants in the United States, and then they're going to start exporting it. Who's the number 2 producer of coal in the world? Russia. So oil, natural gas, and coal are going to be the players on the chessboard, and he's going to push Mr. Putin into a corner and say, you ain't seen nothing yet, because we're going to energy, depending upon the price of those 3 commodities in the world markets, is anywhere from 20% to as high as 60% of the GDP of Russia.
Yeah.
And if we drive the price of energy down because we're producing like crazy and supplying energy to the rest of the world, in addition, we were also taking those special rare earth minerals at the mercy of China. In the Ukraine deal, we negotiated rights to those sharing in those minerals. But in the same general area in Utah where they found have this huge coal deposit, on public lands is a massive discovery of rare earth minerals. So I think Mr. Trump is going to go into the meeting with Putin, and he says, let me tell you what it's going to be. I can destroy your country. I can produce more oil, more natural gas, more coal than you can, and I can have a dramatic 20 to 40% impact on your economy relatively quickly. Do you want that to happen, or do you want to make peace? I think that that's a good part of Trump's strategy going into the meeting in Alaska.
IQ Risoli.
Russia has been described
Yeah,
as
go ahead, Frank.
a gas station with nuclear weapons. And clearly
It's a gas station with nuclear weapons. That is
that
awesome.
is, of course, the weakness that Mr. Putin has. The problem, and the reason I think we have to come to this rather significant point, is that Putin is personally invested in this to the extent that if he gets nothing out of his adventure in Ukraine, I think he believes he is personally endangered. And I mean that in the literal physical sense of the word. And that's going to be, I think, one of the harsh points in the discussions in Anchorage.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I also think that you have a situation where uh, the power of the United States, its economy, its energy infrastructure, the things that it's doing. I think there have been a lot of rumors, and I'm sure you've seen them as I have, a lot of rumors coming out of Washington that, quote, the Europeans are trying to kill this discussion. And they may be or may not be. I don't know whether it's true. But if you think about it, again, going back to the tariffs, Frank, all the time in our lifetimes, tariffs have been favorably disposed since the Second World War to the losing nations and the damaged nations in the Second World War. We couldn't, there are things that we could never afford to export to Europe because the tariffs, we couldn't sell cars because the tariffs were so expensive, and agricultural products and cheese and all that stuff. With the new level playing field of 15% tariffs both directions, I think that there are a lot of people, government officials and business people in Europe who are concerned, what is that going to mean to them in terms of preserving their countries and preserving their corporations? Just as a little side piece, I spoke before the show this afternoon to a gentleman who has a company that is marketing raw whiskey in barrels that you put in a bonded warehouse. You buy the whiskey, put it in a bonded warehouse, and 6 to 8 years, you turn around and sell it for probably a triple on your money. He said, we were not ever able to export American liquor into Europe. He said the inquiries that we're getting from all over Europe about buying whiskey in barrels and American brands is driving them crazy. So he sees a huge opportunity to export billions of dollars worth of whiskey to Europe and to Asia because the tariffs are now reasonable. So we're still balancing and counterbalancing what's going on with the tariffs, except that we know they're producing budget surpluses in the United States.
Well, that's exactly right. The economic element in all this, of course, is going to be essential. But there's one other element we haven't yet discussed, and that is the Chinese oversight of all of this. The Chinese are watching this very carefully to see what a Western response would be towards an invasion of Taiwan. One of the reasons why the president has to stand firm on Ukraine, not concede territory, not concede a lot of things, is you don't want to encourage the Chinese to realize that they could profit by an invasion of Taiwan.
Yeah, I understand that. I think that China has been extremely quiet because I think they understand the chess game that Trump is playing with tariffs. They see the ships sitting in the harbors, not being able to ship stuff to the United States, and now not being able to ship stuff to other countries of the world. And all of a sudden, you and I talked about this some time ago, whether the Chinese, as a defensive move to take some of the heat off, would be to attack Taiwan to try and change the new world order. But I think every day that goes by, and if Trump comes away with peace from Putin at a reasonable price, China is going to be in serious trouble.
Yeah. China has a serious structural economic vulnerability, which is their failure to develop a domestic consumer economy. This puts them at the mercy of the rest of the world. We're used to talking about what are we going to do without Chinese cheap goods or Chinese chips or whatever. But the reality of it is, without a domestic economy, China is on the brink of having serious problems. Look, you've got a situation where Xi is increasingly elderly. He is increasingly facing some problems from within his own party, as a matter of fact. If you look at the number of Chinese leaders, Chinese businessmen who have disappeared over the past couple of years, who have been disenfranchised in terms of their votes at Communist Party events, you see that Xi is being challenged from within. Quietly, this isn't something that's being fought in the newspapers like it would be in the West. But China clearly has, and Xi in particular, has a clear problem. He's got to come up with something, whether it's an invasion of Taiwan to divert his domestic attention away from his own economic failures, or something else. And right now, he's not looking very strong, frankly.
I agree. I totally agree.
So IQ Rassooli, give us your thoughts on this, my man.
Well, I discussed earlier with Daniel. Trump and Putin can get on very well. There's no question about that one. And Putin has a last chance, literally a last chance. No other leader on earth can solve the problem with Ukraine. But the only way to solve this problem is an exchange of territory. Anybody who says they can get away without exchange of territory is living in cuckoo land. And I honestly believe that the Western European Union is trying to undermine Trump both in Ukraine and on Gaza. They're doing it. And if I were Trump, I would say to them, listen, guys, I tried my best. If you think you can do a better job, you take that. I'm out.
I have a slightly different perspective. I tend to think what the Europeans are doing is actually a good cop, bad cop type of situation. I actually think it helps Donald Trump and helps the West in their negotiations with Putin. You always want to have someone who's asking for a lot more in order to encourage the other side to concede something else. So I don't think that the European position is hurting Trump. I actually think it's helping him.
Well, let's put it this way. Crimea is not going to go back to Ukraine. Donbass is not going to go back to Ukraine. So tell me, what's the settlement, please?
I think there are a couple of concessions that could be made. For example, I think one of the claims that Putin has made consistently was that he initiated this war because he was afraid Ukraine would join NATO. An agreement for Ukraine not to join NATO would be a concession that could be given. I don't know if it's a great concession, but it's certainly one that could be given. Again, we have to go back to Putin's chief aims in all of this. And if that was one of his key concerns, I think that is something of some significance. If you look at the peace that President Trump established between Armenia and Azerbaijan, I think that gives Trump another quiver, another arrow in his quiver that he could launch. So I do think there are a lot of factors that are actually moving towards Trump's side. And I think you put all of them together, and I think Putin is at a substantial disadvantage at this point, despite the strong military position he holds on the ground in Donbass and in Crimea.
Yeah, I also think that if we can get this thing done, there's going to be a tremendous economic redevelopment opportunity in Ukraine. And I think while the United States and European nations will be interested in participating, I think the money that Russia's been diverting to fight the war could be used to participate in the economic development of Ukraine.
And why not? Good idea. Why not? It's always money. It's always the
Always
economy.
about the Benjamins.
That's
Always about
right.
the Benjamins.
Always the Benjamin. Throughout history, every empire went after the Benjamin.
That's right. I mean, it sounds crass to say it that way, but that's the bottom line. It's always about the money. And just think about Gaza. Think about the economic opportunity to redevelop Gaza. It's
That's
there.
about $50 billion at least.
$50 billion is peanuts to the world. Peanuts.
Yeah. As I said, but
$50 billion is peanuts to us.
Yeah.
With a $1 trillion deficit that we have. So I think that there is a real possibility that it may not happen in this round of negotiations, but I think there's going to be an economic development authority set up to rebuild Ukraine, and I think European companies and governments and American governments and American companies and Russia and Russian companies are going to want to be involved economically.
In all of this, though, there's one thing that we should not forget. In terms of the credibility of the West, recall that at the fall of the Soviet Union, Ukraine was actually the world's third largest nuclear power. And in return for the surrender of Ukraine's nuclear weapons, the United States, the United Kingdom, and indeed Russia guaranteed Ukrainian sovereignty. We are treaty bound to assist the Ukrainians. That argument seems to have been lost in all of the discussion on Ukraine. And it is unfortunate. And I think it's something that hopefully the president does bring up. This is a point of credibility for the United States. We are treaty bound to assist the Ukrainians.
With all due respect, the same argument could be put that the agreement with the Soviet Union when it collapsed, that the NATO will not encroach on the Soviet or Russia, but they encroached. They brought in more and more. Whatever. You're shaking your head. Why? Am I telling you a lie?
Because we did not encroach on Mother Russia. We took over, or we liberated previously independent Eastern European countries. Liberating Poland was not encroaching on Russia. It was bringing a European country back into the European fold.
Yeah, but you are not European. You're American. What's got to do with you?
It's got a lot to do with the West. It's got everything to do with it because
Yes, yes,
Poland was not part of the Soviet Union, nor was
correct.
Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, and all the others. So there was no encroachment on Russian territory.
It's not on Russian territory. What I was saying is surrounding her. They were encroaching on property, or sorry, on territories that were part of the Soviet Union that are now part of NATO. NATO was a military alliance against the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union is gone, but NATO is still there. So what are we? Who is threatening whom?
Oh,
Who is
I
threatening
clearly,
whom?
clearly, I have to disagree with you on that because the Russians violated the Yalta Agreement at
God.
the end of the Second World War and kept their troops occupying Eastern Europe. Simply having them live up to that original post-World War II or World War II agreement is not encroaching on Russia's rights or Russia's territory or threatening Russia. It's a return to the status quo ante before the Second World War.
So Patton was right. General Patton was right. He wanted
Uh,
to go back and take over Czechoslovakia. He was right, but they killed him. I think he was assassinated.
well, I think that the West was, let's face it, at the World War II, the world was exhausted. I don't think you could have had popular support for continuing the fighting. Um, but I do think that going back to the Yalta Agreement does make a lot of sense and was not an encroachment on Moscow's prerogatives.
Funnily enough, I don't think anybody else knows it the way you are putting it together. I mean it. You think those in the West, in European Union, have the intelligence that you have? They don't. They don't. Honestly, they don't. I guarantee you
To
they
be
don't.
fair, nobody has the intelligence of Frank Vernuccio.
Oh,
Thank you.
That's
stop. I'll give you the $5 after the show for that.
Only $5? That's cheap.
So,
That's
but
cheap.
Jim, I would like to, if since we only got a few minutes, I'd like to throw another subject out on the table for Frank and IQ.
Yep.
Um, two stories that are related to each other. Over the weekend, 435 migrants crossed the English Channel,
Yeah.
bringing the total of illegals coming across into the UK so far this year of 26,000. Now, in reading this story, I'm looking at it, I'm saying 26,000 for 6 months. I mean, we had millions coming in 6 months, but the English, anyway, they've got a problem. And Nigel wants to be reelected, and he wants to put in a commissioner who's in charge of reform to get these people out of their country. At the same time, on the 11th, there was a report that came out that said 21%, 21% of the adult British population are in favor of using violence to get rid of migrants in the country. 21%. And they're complaining about housing policies, government services, that the illegals are draining the reserves of the British government, and the British people are suffering because of it. Those are two very significant numbers. When you're over 20% of a population who says that they think violence should be justified to get rid of them, and another guy saying we're at 26,000 and the record was 17,000 and change last year, we got to stop this. And so I'm curious as to what Frank or IQ have to say about what's happening in our sister country, the British Isles, about their dealing with the problem of illegal immigration.
They're not dealing with it. They're helping it. They are allowing them to come. I mean, it's insane. But it was the same insanity with your open border. All they have to do is declare publicly anybody who crosses the channel illegally will be either sunk or returned back to origin. Simple. Complicated? No. Literally simple. One declaration. And somebody flaunts the declaration, sink them, nobody will come back. Many times on James' show, I said it. If you declare that anybody crosses the border of the United States of America, shoot them dead, and you shoot one or two dead, nobody will come. It
Fix the
was always
problem.
that simple. But it was always that simple. That's exactly what Trump did. He said, "Don't come." He put the armed forces and the police and ICE with authority to literally use violence if they need to. But that's how it works. If somebody is coming into my home without my authorization, I'll blow their brains up. I don't care about any other law. It's my sanctity. I don't know about Frank. What do you think?
There's a profound feeling of disenfranchisement by the British people. And it applies to both the Liberal Party as well as the Conservative Party, the Tories and the Liberals. There's a strong feeling that no matter who got in power, they basically had the same problem. Look at Brexit, for example. The British people voted for Brexit, and yet, in many ways, both parties in Parliament really worked to weaken the effect of Brexit. That's why I think you're going to see in this issue as well, you're going to see some dramatic political revolutions, and I do mean that in the peaceful sense of the word, in the next elections in Britain, because there is an earthquake tremoring right beneath the surface, and it's about to erupt. And I do think it's going to happen relatively soon. Um, if you had a Donald Trump, if you had the Donald Trump running for office in the UK, the man would probably win a substantial number of votes. I do think something dramatic is going to happen in the UK because the dramatic challenges are really there. If you look at the attempts by the British government to censor free speech, which is becoming more and more pronounced and more open, it's clear that the establishment in the UK is very frightened of the majority of the population, and they're doing everything possible to put this earthquake to bed. But it's not going to be suppressed so easily, and I think you're going to see some dramatic changes in the very near future.
Well, Dan, you're muted.
Yeah, Dan is muted.
Now I'm
Well,
not. Now I'm
There we
not.
go.
okay. Yeah, no, it's going to happen. And not only in, you see, it's going to be a domino effect. If it happens in England or any other European country, all the other European countries will follow. The people in all the other European countries have had it. And they are right.
Yep.
When they speak about the government, governments don't have money. These are the money of the natives, of the people who are working hard to make a living. So when speak about the government, what government? They haven't got any money. This
Well,
is
you're
my
seeing you're
money.
seeing you're seeing a reaction in the Eastern European countries. You're seeing a reaction in Italy as well. The big nuts to crack will be, of course, Germany and France. France seems to be the furthest along on this path, and I have business partners who talk about if you want to visit France, you should go really soon because soon the France that we know will no longer exist.
It's true, absolutely true. Again, even in France and Germany, they are suppressing the information
Yeah.
or contorting it on purpose. But as you said, you see, you talk about earthquake. I call it magma. It's a volcanic explosion. It's going to go up and it's going to destroy societies. No question. It's going to be a bloodbath. There will be a bloodbath.
So as we wrap up here with Frank, how do we get in touch with you online, my friend, and social media, everything that you've got going?
You can get in touch with us at usagovpolicy.com. There's links to our research articles. There's links to our TV and radio show right there.
Fantastic.
usagovpolicy.com.
Well, Frank, thanks for joining us this week, and we will talk to you next week. Thank you,
I
sir.
look forward to our next discussion. Take care.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
There
Bye.
he goes.
Bye.
That is
Bye.
Frank Vernuccio. And apparently Jeff Cruer is not going to be able to join us today. He is going to be on next week. So it's just going to be me,
Okay.
IQ, and Dan for the rest of the time here. So one of the things that I keep hearing, I don't believe this at all, but I keep hearing that yesterday, when the UFC signed their deal with Paramount for like $7 billion or some god awful monopoly money type estimate, that one of the reasons why they went with Paramount was apparently there is a conspiracy theory that in order to get the deal approved by the Trump administration, they had to do a deal with Trump's buddy Dana White. Why is it that everybody just thinks that this is just happening all the time? All these people are doing all these deals because, oh, Trump's buddy. Trump's this, Trump's that.
Well, part of the reason, Jim, is that we know about these things. The mainstream media is telling us all these stories about what's supposedly happening and the deals that are being cut. They didn't say squat about all the deals that Hunter was cutting and putting money in the family's pockets.
Yep.
So it's not a matter of being truthful. It's a matter of trying to continue the narrative to diminish the potential of Donald Trump and what he's doing for the country. And so the idea that we have businesses that want to do business, I haven't heard anybody yet since Mr. Trump has been in the White House who is accusing him of doing anything illegal as it relates to the various laws on the books about self-dealing as presidents and stuff like that. I haven't seen anything about that. I've seen Nancy Pelosi being charged with insider trading, and she's out on her high horse saying that it wasn't me, it was my husband. But I think it is a continuation, and
Of course it was.
I really don't understand this. Either the news media are so biased, so bigoted that they're refusing to accept the reality of what's going on. Even Pete this week last week, he said, well, there's some things that Mr. Trump's doing right for the country. And he got hammered by the left for even speaking those words, like it was sacrilege. There are things that are going on that Mr. Trump is doing, and I have yet to hear anybody say that he's cutting himself a deal on any of these tariffs, since he has golf courses and hotels and businesses all over the world. There hasn't been anything there. So I don't understand the news media. And I'm glad you brought this up, because I want to remind the audience that last week you said you had no inside baseball on this one, but you wouldn't be surprised if Howard Stern's contract wouldn't be renewed. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. and that's what they're talking about, that they may not renew his and the left is going after him from the standpoint that he's, quote, no longer relevant. Well, that may be true, and the
Wow.
money that was spent on trying to keep Colbert Show going cost CBS $40 million of losses. Jimmy
Just
Kimmel's
amazing.
operation is in the tank. And yet, when Greg Gutfeld went on the Tonight Show last Thursday night, he grew the audience by 56% to the highest audience so far this year. And I think you have to go back to 2024 to find an audience of comparable size. Why is it that the media still can't accept what the American people believe, and the American people are still saying about the policies that he believes and he's trying to make happen? We had today Tulsi Gabbard standing before in the White House press office talking about a new release of documents, and the bulk of the conversation between the press pool and her was over her continued allegations based on what they brought out today that Barack Obama has committed treason, with new stuff that came out that was presented today. And I've heard through sources that there are more things coming out. Schiff came out yesterday, but I understand there's more to come out about Shifty Schiff and other people within the administration. So what appears to be happening, at least superficially, is all the bad guys who went after Trump in 2016 and 2017 and 18 and 19 are coming under pressure to account for their actions. And when this whistleblower came out and said she was in the room when Schiff said to release classified information to the media to make Trump look bad, Jonathan Turley in this morning commentary said, we got two things going on here. Somebody's lying or somebody's going to jail. We just need to sort out which one it is. Is it Schiff? Did he in fact disclose qualified information and had it leaked to the press? Did he take that decision and do that? And if he did that, he's in serious trouble. And he's out attacking Donald Trump. You know, one of the things that came out in the press conference today was Chelsea was asking the question, which all of us have thought about for a long time. Do you remember when Schiff, when he was chairman of that oversight committee, and he said he was personally aware of information about things that Donald Trump had done that he had not been, meaning Schiff, had not yet released. He never released them. And now the questions are being asked in Congress. Was there ever any there?
Of course, there
Yeah.
wasn't any. Obviously, there was. If there was anything, they would have crucified him double time.
Yeah, and the court, he asked Chelsea, or he asked Pam Bondi to go and send a representative of the Justice Department to speak with the judge who's in control of the Epstein papers from the grand jury, and to release it. And he said again today, no, I'm not going to do it. And there's nobody in the land who can force him to do it. As long as he doesn't want to do it, it ain't going to happen. Now, I still believe that there will be people who will be enticed with money, Benjamins, here we go again, Benjamins, to spill the beans of what the transcripts have to say.
I love it.
Yeah.
So IQ Al Rassooli, another thing that seems to be I just don't understand why I want to know this situation with this it seems like when you get on the Drudge Report or any of these other places, they constantly talk about Trump building a police state. Oh, he's going to watch and monitor the citizens. Hadn't they been doing that since the Bush administration?
The Patriot, it's called the Patriot Act.
Like, why is this new, IQ? Is it
But
because it's Trump? Is that why it is?
yeah, that's why. Look, the Trump derangement syndrome is more serious than anybody could possibly imagine. Not only are 38% or 35% of the American voters are completely deranged, but every single member, except what's his name, the one who's the only Democrat who's against the whole shebang.
The senator from Pennsylvania,
Yeah,
Fetterman.
all the others are criminals. Every single one of them is a criminal. They really are. They have destroyed their cities. They have destroyed the states, and they're standing and saying it is Trump who is doing it. But Trump was out of power for 4 years under Biden, and they were trying to destroy him 4 years before that when he was president. And yet, all of them, bar none, keep saying that it is Trump. Look, there's nothing you can do about it. 2026, I said, and I repeat it, every single Democrat place should be contested by the Republicans. Because by 2026, there will be nobody in the Republican Party above 1% or 2% of voters who will be part of the deal. It will be all Republican. At the moment, a lot of people who used to be Democrats are switching. A lot of people.
True. The question is, will they stay converted Republicans all the way to get to the 2026?
Yes, they will. They will. Look, they realize, I mean, look, when you switch, not because you're stupid, because you wake up and say, hey, listen, what am I doing? They keep telling me they're going to protect me, and they're screwing me.
Right.
Everything is against me. Everything is against me. They support the illegals. They support the perverts. They support everybody except the Americans. I mean,
Right.
you don't need to be a genius to come to a conclusion that there is something wrong.
But you know what I wonder about IQ is, and I appreciate what you're saying, is that I could create a scenario for you that would say, under these circumstances, the Democrats are going to have a very, very difficult time. And the circumstances are the following. If the Justice Department, Attorney General, it empowers more than one grand jury for Hillary, Obama, Brenner, Comey, all these people, and you get indictments that come down against these people, and the former president is indicted as an unindictable co-conspirator in this situation. I think that will do an enormous amount of damage to the Democratic Party and to the rank and file who have been the kind of people who would support the Democratic candidate because they had a D after their name. But if the historical Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Schiff, on and on and on, if the historical leaders of the Democratic Party through this past 10 years are indicted, some are convicted and some go to jail, I think it will be difficult for the Democratic Party to have credibility, any credibility, with the American voters, and it will be the Democrats who will have to reject their party and either go independent or become Republicans in order to have any kind of a chance to win an office.
This is on the assumption that the Republicans will go ahead and do what you're saying.
Well, the House Judiciary Committee is run by an Ohio boy, and he's always impressed me as a person who is level-headed, keeps his nose to the grindstone, does his homework, gets control of his facts before he opens his mouth. And I think that they're doing things the right way, and it's taking longer than most people think it should take. But I think that there is a tremendous risk to the Democratic Party in the way that their accountability that they've gotten away with over the last 10 years. As Reverend Wright said, the chickens are coming home to roost big time.
About
And
time, too.
Pardon?
About time.
Oh yeah, I agree. The processes are too slow when everybody knows what the true answer is, and it's just and the mainstream media still refuses to accept what is not hearsay, what is not undocumented, but when documented papers come out from the former president and the team and Comey, and you know this whole story that broke last week that Comey had 4 people on his FBI staff who were telling him about the illegal things that other people were doing, and strongly suggested that they be investigated, and Comey never did it. He covered it up. But they're there, they told their story, there's a record, and so that information is going to keep coming out in dribs and drabs, and there's testimony before the House and Senate, and it's going to come out, and it's like a Chinese water torture. It's just going to come drop by drop by drop by drop, and it's just going to wear away. And I don't see anybody or anything that can turn the Democratic Party around. They're in a death spiral.
I'm happy. I'm smiling.
Yeah.
I really
Okay.
am. Nobody deserves it more than to commit suicide than the Democratic Party.
You know, and what I like about the press secretary, she doesn't mince her words, nor does Tulsi Gabbard mince her words. They speak exactly what everybody knows what they mean when they talk. There's no, well, wonder what they meant by that. There's no question of that with those 2 ladies. And I saw the press secretary this afternoon. I mean, she just pounded on the fact that the majority of people in this room took stories that were fed to them by administration officials that were not true, didn't investigate them, accepted them as true, and ran with them and ran with them and ran with them. And you're still unwilling to admit that you lied to the American people and didn't tell the truth. And you got rewarded with Pulitzer Prizes for what you said. So it's disconcerting in a sense, Jim, because as we talked once before, many times before, when the founders set up the government, they had 3 branches, but they hoped that the news media, the press, would become what is called the 4th estate, that it was their job to look after what the branches of government were doing that was right and or wrong, to call out the government when they were wrong, to keep the American people informed of what was going on. And that 4th estate failed us at least over the last 10 years.
Because they're criminals. They really are criminals. She treats them with the contempt they deserve. They really do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I
And
agree.
they can't, they even don't repent. They are so shameless. They will not even repent.
Nope. They don't seem to want to admit that they did anything wrong.
No,
And
no, no.
and and in the face of all the evidence, how do you not question your ethics in taking a story and as a journalist not researching it to see if you can substantiate it that it was true? When Ben Bradley was running the Washington Post, and when he had Woodward and Bernstein, who were looking at the Watergate situation, what Bradley consistently said, you got to give me two sources to substantiate what you're saying. Not anymore. They don't even have to substantiate it. They just use it, say it, and use it as if it was true, and let the chips fall where they may. I mean, it's much easier. I don't know who said this, but it's a great line. It's much easier to apologize than to ask permission.
Yep.
And that's what's going on. They're apologizing because they're not asking permission to tell the truth.
It's insane.
Mm-hmm.
It's just insane. Well, we've got a couple minutes left here. Dan, I want you to throw out a topic here for IQ.
It appears that our friend at CBS, The Late Show, is on sabbatical and they're running reruns, and that he may not come back after his rerun period. They're just going to be he's going to disappear. And there's also talk now that Disney is going to get rid of The View.
You know, they're all dying one at a time. I love it. I swear to you, I love it. All of them are dying one at a time because they never told the truth. They treated the American public with disrespect, with with malice aforethought all the time. They don't deserve to survive. And hopefully they will go, all of them, in the sewer.
Well, the concern that, and I appreciate what you're saying, the concern that I have is what's happening in the schools of journalism in the country today. What are
You
they
don't
teaching?
you don't have schools of journalism. You have schools of indoctrination. Like the schools at universities, you have indoctrination. You don't have schools anymore. When the report came about Democrat-run schools with 40% of the students cannot add arithmetic, 40%. What are we discussing, for God's sake? What are we discussing? These are criminal acts of negligence. People they should have heads cut off.
Hmm.
But nothing is happening. That's the trouble. Nothing is happening.
And Jim, I don't know whether you heard this story or IQ, but I told it yesterday morning in my current events group. Um, the state of Arizona passed a voucher law, and it went into effect for this school year, starting probably right now. And they decided that they would give parents of children who wanted to that they wanted to leave the school they were in $7,000 a student, and they
Jesus.
could take that money to a private school, to uh, homeschooling, whatever. So the state board provides income to the school districts to run their schools, and they make a preliminary estimate in April of how many students they will put in the chairs come September or August, depending on their school term. And then their funding is set up for the year based on those numbers. However, they have to do an audit at the end of the first full week of school of actually how many children are in the chairs. and it's disastrous. Student populations are down in some districts as much as 20%, which means they have to then give back to the state board um, the money that they were not entitled to. So what's happened is in the states where there are um, voucher systems, companies have been started to be recruiters of parents to bring their children back to the public school. They're actually paying, just like recruiting for football or basketball, they're recruiting parents to bring their children back into the schools so they can get the funding. That's how bad it is.
The thing that gets me is that we have so much money in this country.
Yeah.
We have so much money to do crap like this, but yet we can't take care of the homeless veterans. We can't give people health care. We can't give people a raise, but we can do this.
Yeah,
It's amazing to me.
it is. I mean, we have the Democratic Party that spent, they talk about $1.5 billion, but when you add the PAC money, it's another billion. And the Democratic Party spent $2.5 billion on trying to elect Kamala Harris as president, and she failed. Two and a half. We're talking about money. We're talking about serious money at $2.5 billion, Jim. $2.5 billion, and they still couldn't convince the American people to vote for her.
Just amazing to me.
And and she's not going to do governor. She's not going to run for governor of California. And there are people that are her former big money people say, don't try it for president because I ain't giving you any money.
Yeah.
And Bernie Sanders came out yesterday, and whether you saw this, he made a comment about her campaign. You know what she said? He said she got too many billionaires in her corner. Too many billionaires. So
He's another jerk. A multi-million, but
He's
he is,
another jerk.
but he's a multi-millionaire communist. I mean, look at the contradiction. He's a communist, but he's a multi-millionaire communist. Yeah, they should all expire. They passed the expiry date.
it's
Anyway,
amazing, we have this project, Jim. Ron DeSantis, who is our governor and who's will be done at the end of this year because he's be term limited out. His claim to fame in Florida is his commitment to clean water. And we have this massive lake in the center of the state, Lake Okeechobee. And the sugar interests have owned the land around the lake forever to grow sugarcane.
Yeah.
And now they've reached the point that there isn't enough land left. There isn't enough dirt left in the ground to grow sugar. So they've got this proposal that they want to start a 35-year program to blasting the limestone out of Lake Okeechobee and selling it. And they want the state of Florida taxpayers to pay for the blasting.
Of course they do. Of course they do.
$35 billion to blast the rocks out of the limestone out of Okeechobee. And they say, and when we're done, we're going to leave a great big hole so you can put a lot of water in there, more than you got now. And
More of that.
Pardon?
More of that. We got a lot of money, but you need to pay for
Right.
it.
And I just saw a flash come across my screen. We just crossed $37 trillion of debt today. 37 trillion.
Good God. What a deal.
Yep. So it's a very
Yeah.
interesting time and place to live, as I see it. And I just, there's so many stories. I have in my Monday morning program, I do 7 to 9 different stories on lots of different subjects every Sunday, every Monday morning. And I could do more, but I've only got so much time that I can spend with these people. But there's just an enormous amount of news. And part of it is the fact that the expansion of things like your shows and my shows and Frank are replacing the declining audiences in the traditional mainstream media because we have a different approach in how we're reporting what's going on. And so, when you got Joe Rogan outdrawing any major network in prime time by millions of listeners, I think he got 22 million listeners to and watchers to his show. Nobody's close. Nobody's not even 10% of that, except for Gutfeld. Gutfeld is 3.1 million, but the media has changed dramatically, and over the last 10 years, and the mainstream media has gotten worse, and social media has gotten better. And I think more and more people are going to podcasts because they like the freedom and the independence and not being aligned with a particular network and have to do the bidding of the owners, like what happened at CBS.
Yep.
And now we're saying Jimmy Kimmel's next. And what did Jimmy Kimmel do? He filed for Italian citizenship. So in case he loses his show, he's going to leave and go to Italy.
Well, that's fine.
Arrivederci.
Well, as we wrap up here, let's start with IQ. IQ, what did you think of today's show?
James, every show is fantastic because we tell the American people the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So there you go.
So, Dan, bring us up to speed on some of the stuff you're involved in.
I'm working with the book with my Irish gentleman. We're going to dinner with him tomorrow night to talk about the book. Um, I've found one of the things I'll be real quick. Artificial intelligence is changing the publishing business. Where I paid when I did the Brotherhood of the Red Nile trilogy, and I converted each one of the 3 books into audiobooks, I paid about $8,000 a book for each audiobook. Now there are artificial intelligence voices that you can hire for $37 to do an entire book.
Jesus.
And
What a deal.
and you can go and you can spend big time, like $167, and get every bell and whistle you'd ever want to produce a book. So that's changing dramatically. And I'm tinkering with, I did my first AI television commercial, and it turned out pretty well. I had to do it a lot of times till I got used to the technology, but it's going to happen. And it is happening, and it's going to get more and more. And you're going to see it dramatically in the 2026 campaign. Books are available at Amazon.com. Foundation is songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Personal website is danperkins.guru. And then my television and radio shows are on Dan Perkins Media. And as always, sir, thank you for having me on.
Yep, it has been a blast. And on Thursday, we will talk to IQ and Larry Tracy and everybody else. And Dan, I will talk to you next week, sir.
Yeah,
Have a good
and
day.
IQ,
Yes, sir.
stay on. Don't
Yeah,
go
stay
away.
on. Stay on.
I'm staying.
So let me.
So tell them what your idea is, Jim.
Okay, so